What's up, buddy?
Are you sounding a little out of breath? Did you just race to the computer from your swim session?
Oh my goodness. What a whirlwind this has been in the last hour.
Man, it's a rough life.
Yeah, I got a little hooked on the pool, and then I slid into the sauna for an extended stay and lost track of time.
Did you put it on your GoPro?
No.
All right, good. Good call.
I went Facebook Live, though. You didn't see it?
Oh, man. I figured if Facebook Live, the last couple of days have been the day because it's probably going to get buried between, everything else that's been going on. So you probably wouldn't have got that many views anyway.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I could have got kind of eased into the whole Facebook Live scene with some...
Yeah, what exactly is that? Is this just like a live stream of what you're doing currently?
I think so, yeah. I think
so.
It pops up.
So is it just like a live feed of somebody scrolling through Facebook looking at other people?
No, it's like it's like Skype or something. You just kind of do what you put up in your phone, and you just show people what you're looking at. It's kind of like,
It's weird.
I don't know. Everything's weird now. I don't even know where to start with that. But I do have to say that it's kind of on topic today because what happened was I was doing some errands and I said, you know what, I'm going to go to the pool. I went down to the pool and I was literally undressed, standing in front of my locker, and it was freezing in there, and I almost talked myself out of it. And
I thought for a second you were going to go George Costanza.
Oh, no, but that has happened to me before. A woman walked into the men's locker room at the downtown Y, and I was standing there naked, and she was looking for her kid, screaming for her kid. She just ran right into the locker room, and I was naked from the pool, and I was just like, just got out of the pool. Everybody just started laughing. But no, that wasn't what I was getting at. What I was getting at is I was really close to putting my clothes back on, even though I was already at the Y in my locker and 2 feet from my swim trunks. So it's kind of this go with the flow. Whenever I do that, I always think of Stephen Pressfield. I don't know if you've read him or not, but
I haven't.
He wrote The War of Art, and there's another book that I really like called Do the Work, and it's about beating resistance. And resistance is basically anything that gets in your head right before you want to do something that you should be doing. So it's a really good book. I highly recommend it to anyone. And he talks a lot about writing, which is one of the most resistant fields you can get into because there's nothing worse than staring at a blank page. But there's all these things that can just you can talk yourself out of anything. And anyway, I guess the point of the whole thing is I finally decided to get in the pool, and I said I'm just going to go swim because I'm still back. I'm still getting back into the swim shape thing. So I said I'm just going to go swim. And you used to put a workout on the schedule. I always do a swim that makes you feel good, and that's kind of where I was at when I got in the water. And I just went after it, and I just kept going, and it just, ended up being probably the best swim I've had of the year, even though I was not even close to feeling like swimming, which is it's a weird phenomenon, I think. And I get that when I run sometimes, and I don't know if it's just that pent-up energy that's trying to talk you out of it before you do it, and then it kind of comes out in the process of it.
Yeah.
So, man, it was just... it was a great day at the pool, and I've been thinking a lot about how not to suck at swimming. Our podcast, the 2 podcasts that we've done, and a lot of simple stuff that we've been talking about, and then you've been telling everybody to do, like press down on the water and the body position and all that sort of thing. And today was one of those days where I just forced myself to relax while doing it, and I think that I just don't know if that can be overestimated. The idea of being relaxed while you swim.
Oh God, yeah. Because it's huge.
When I start to try and overpower the water, or be strong with my arms and my shoulders and everything like that, and just start beating it up, invariably I start going slower. Like today, I was just sort of cruising at a real nice pace that I'd be happy with in a Olympic, certainly.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to be stiff and be rhythmic.
Yeah.
And swimming is so rhythmic that you can't be stiff. And it's really hard. It probably sounds counterintuitive to some people, but it's actually really hard to get a good feel for the water when you're stiff because you're so rigid. It kind of takes away all of your sensory because you're so clenched and you're so restrictive that it's hard to feel pretty much anything besides that restrictiveness and tenseness.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point, that rhythmic thing, because I'm kind of a hack drummer, and I used to always dig into these drummers guys for tips and stuff like that. And the one guy told me, one of my favorite drummers told me, he goes, "Man, just dance when you're back there. Just think about dancing and find that rhythm within your body." And that's sort of kind of how I felt today. I think not that I'm a great dancer, but I felt like that that flow and that back and forth sort of in a rhythmic motion without resistance of that tightness in your shoulders and everything. It was just sort of limber throughout, and not, and also because I think when I swim with aggression sometimes, or over tension, that's when my hand starts going way too far down. You know what I mean? Like that arm straightens out because you go into the water with such an aggressive entry that your arm is almost touching the bottom of the pool and you're trying to pull back. So I was trying to keep my arms higher in the water and just get that kind of quick turnover like you talk about, and that flow in a nice, and I always talk about that, keeping on a metronome with your hands hitting the water exactly the same tempo, and that's when I really feel like I'm hitting a groove.
I like it, man. Swimming is all about the groove.
Yeah, man. I think that makes sense. So you sent me a couple articles, and I read through them briefly here, and you're going to have to carry this because I am running behind here a little bit, but I did run through them.
I figured as much.
What do you like you want to talk about the Lionel thing first, or?
Yeah, I thought that's a good segue because I think there's a lot of different ways we could go with that, but as I was scanning through and trying to filter my Twitter feed this week of minimal followers and followees in between the politics and everything else going on with the world, a little article popped up that said that, which I had already kind of assumed, but I guess it was more concrete now, that Lionel Sanders, a really popular Canadian triathlete who's won a ton of 70.3s. He won Ironman Arizona this last November and set the new Ironman M.Dot official Ironman time with like 7:44, which is insane.
Yeah.
And he's an incredible talent and probably the best cyclist in the sport. But his swim is nowhere near where he needs to be, and I think he was 8 minutes out of the water coming out of Kona this year, and which is pretty close to what I kind of predicted. I just have never thought he was going to be a contender in Kona until he addressed his swim, just because of the dynamics of the race there. Having to ride through that field alone is just there's no way you'll be able to run your best after doing that. And so when I saw that, I kind of thought, hey, finally somebody is learning. And I think it's the biggest takeaway I had was, I think it's a great takeaway for age group triathletes. And there's so many different ways we can go with this, but I posted something on Twitter maybe a week ago that was, because I think some coaches in general really hang their hat on coaching somebody to an Ironman, that like they don't want to say they coach somebody in just Olympics. And I just posted and said, if you need, as a coach, you need to be able to tell an athlete that they're not ready. And that long-term development within the sport is now kind of gone by the wayside, and that's why the sport in general is dying, is because it's become, like we talked before, it's become a bucket list race.
Yeah.
It's become a one and done. Nobody cares about the progression. No, it's not even. I would say I would love to do a poll. Maybe we can do like a Twitter poll or something. Did you start at to as a lifestyle or a fitness journey, or just to do an Ironman and quit? Like, what is it that drove you into the sport, and why have you stayed? How long before you did Ironman? I think it was 3 or 4 years for me before I did a full.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I did some pool sprints. I did some Olympics. You just don't see that long-term progression anymore. You do a 70.3, see Ironman, and then I'm done.
Uh-huh.
And I love the fact that I can go back and look at. I'll just take 70.3 for example. My first 70.3 I did in 6 hours and 13 minutes.
Okay.
And 6 years later, I got it down to a 4:32. My first one was just a sufferfest, but it learning and developing within the sport helped me figure out all the small details within the sport that helped me make it into a lifestyle and not a bucket list like trend.
Yeah.
And I just think there's a lot to take away from this. Is his reasoning is, he just can't compete with the front pack and needs to work on his swim. And so he's going to just focus on 70.3 worlds and really work on his swim. And I think it's a very responsible and humbling thing to do. Is just like, if I really want to be good at this, which not everybody does. A lot of people just want to finish, which is okay. But in my opinion, in order for the sport to resurge and not just kind of dwindle away to nothing, then there's going to have to be a whole new slew of triathletes that join the sport that are in it for the long haul and actually like the sport and don't just like the fact that they can say they did an Ironman, and that's why the sport's dying.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you're talking about feeling good about what you did, and we've talked about it. I can't remember on which podcast, but that why you're doing it. Yeah. And in his case, he's very capable and qualified to do fulls, but he didn't feel good about his performance in general, and that can translate into age groupers. They don't feel good about how it felt, if they rush it too fast. And if you don't enjoy or feel good about what's going on or see potential for progression, because maybe you have overstepped your boundaries a little bit and gone too fast, and then it hurts, and then it becomes tougher to recover, and it isn't pleasurable. And I think, isn't that the whole goal, is to sort of go at a pace? And I made that mistake going a little too fast, but because I struggle with that a lot too, this idea of like, man, this is just becomes a grind, and it is a grind, but that isn't why you get in it, really. I mean, like in your case, you got in it because you wanted to get in shape and lose weight at first, but your motivation has changed dramatically now, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean it's totally different, and it's not, it's a different kind of passion I have for the sport. I mean, right now I enjoy teaching the sport more than I do participating in it. To be honest with you, it's but I got into it to lose weight and to feel better about myself, and then I found out that I was kind of good at it, and then I used it to kind of fill some voids in my life, and then I turned around and used it for good. And I think I've learned so much along the way. And that's another thing that just bugs me, is how many. I am by no means the greatest coach on the planet, and there are plenty of coaches out there that they're much more seasoned and accomplished or whatever. But I've been in the sport for like 15 years, and like to see so many, like, you do an Ironman, now you become an Ironman coach. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me, and it's ruining the sport. And I think it takes a much more responsible coach to tell somebody that they need to wait. I've done it twice this year. I've talked out 2 athletes. I've talked them down from doing an Ironman. Mm-hmm. I actually think I only have one on my whole roster right now that's doing a full.
Who's that, me? Oh wait, no, I'm not doing it either.
No, you ain't doing, well, not for now. But more people are getting bought into long-term progression. Like, that's the thing, is like, and I was actually having this conversation with an athlete earlier who was kind of suffering from some some run issues, and he said, I hope it's just temporary, and I'm getting anxious, and like it's been like 3 or 4 days, and I said, first off, everything is temporary, and it's a good thing that there's 365 days in a year and not 3 to 4.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because it's a long year, and people just get so consumed with what I'm doing now, and like I've really made this poor time. And I mean, that was two reasons why I got hired as a coach for these two athletes. Was they had a really bad experience with Ironman. They wanted to really, really up their game.
Uh-huh.
So they hired me, and I was the one that was going to be there, be their saving grace for why they did well at the next one, which I would have been some me, but it would have been more them. And I
Yeah.
talked both of them out of it. Just because like this, it's still going to be there. Like, what's the rush? It's the reason why winning a gold medal has such a more deep and profound effect on the athlete and from those people watching than singular sports that give championships throughout the year.
Mm.
It's because the journey has so much more magnitude and so much more weight that you as the fan, and I mean, we won't even talk about the athlete because that's a given, but we as fans appreciate and know that it takes a 4-year journey to come up to just this one moment. And that's why I love watching the Olympics. In pretty much most sports, because it's the culmination of a process and a journey. And I just love watching the stories, like what they've gone through, what they went through for over 4 years. Like if they can have the patience to wait 4 years to compete for one day, for some athletes, less than 10 seconds or less than a minute to fulfill a lifelong dream, then why can't the average age group athlete who treats this as a hobby wait longer to progress and within the sport and reach their full potential, and at the same point prolong the sport and keep filtering in good seasoned people and athletes? I mean, that's the big difference.
Well, I did the first Ironman I did with 4 other guys, and I think every one of them after that race at some point said that I think next year I'm just going to focus on Olympics. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that's a real feeling, or that's just somebody, that's saying that we want to enjoy it more and kind of like you're saying, build slower. It's almost like you feel like it's such a daunting task to get to that Ironman finish line that there's no room. It takes that, quote unquote 4-year focus in a way. It's so intense that, and I also believe that, let's say you did 3 or 4 or 5 Olympics over the course of a year, you would really be doing your body well, because there's something about training to that level and not going, overboard that really is a nice slow build.
Oh, yeah, and it works a different system of your body. It's like what's the rush? Like it. In my opinion, it is a lot harder to get faster than it is to go longer. You have to be more careful. It's why you see this progression, like you see all the time in the professional ranks. Like you see these guys coming up from from Olympic level triathlon, they jump into 7.3s and they crush people on the first try.
Uh-huh.
Javier Gomez crushed people first try. 70.3 world champion on his first 70.3. Because it's so much, because the way that they train is still somewhat translates to longer distance racing, but finding speed and being sharp at it it takes so much longer if you're going to do it safely.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about this on the group run that I have on Sunday mornings here. I was talking with an older athlete who talked about how terrible he was at cross country and track in high school, and he's probably in his 50s now. He's like, I ran 3 times a week, and I ran hard, and I ran hard, and I ran hard. It's like, and that's and that's all you do.
Yeah.
And it's so much more difficult to mitigate the damage it does to your body. But like, what's so wrong with just getting fast? And because you get fast and then you can go far. It's like though it's so much easier to do that way than it is to. Great example. I did Ironman Wisconsin this year. I took 2 weeks off. I ran a 5K. Thought I was going to die. It's like because it
Yeah.
was a totally different system. To give an example, I did a 5K last year, almost exactly a year ago. It was like the Super Bowl kickoff 5K. I PR'd, and I think I averaged like five. It was my first sub 6 5K, a minute mile. I think I did like 5:56s or something. Trained the whole year. Did an Ironman. You think, oh, he's in ridiculous shape. Oh, crushed in it. Couldn't be any more, fit. Does the Ironman, which you would think would raise my ability to be more fit. 2 weeks later, did the 5K, and I was a minute and a half slower.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, a minute and a half slower. It was incredibly humbling. I was like, huh, there's those Ironman legs trying to run a 5K again. It's like it's a totally different system that you have to work, and that's where I think starting there and delving into the sport, you kind of learn those things and you can adapt and work your way up. Because it also gives you just more to appreciate. Like, not that people who do it in 1 year don't appreciate it, but I don't think that it's the same appreciation for the journey. The longer the journey, the more appreciation. And I'm sure people argue with that, but I'll disagree with you. I think the longer and harder and more sustained the journey, the more you've invested, the more you've put in, the greater the feeling of accomplishment is. And that's what I think keeps people coming back.
Yeah, you have to develop a love at the DNA level of things. I think when you start putting it in that bucket list, which I have to say I don't think I put it in the bucket list. I was just on a journey, and I think that maybe is what has helped me, is that this has been a lifestyle that I've just been trying to figure out the best way to approach it. And certainly the idea of backing down a little bit without the obligation to keep doing fulls is it takes a big burden off my back, and it allows me to kind of enjoy workouts a little bit more, because there's never, I don't put a lot of pressure on. I'm kind of trying to put a little pressure on myself because I do want to try and do well at 70.3 in Chattanooga and go after it a little bit, but I'm still not as like tense. And I guess this is kind of back to the swim thing, is this, I'm not really like all wound up and thinking about it in that way. It's just more of an enjoyable experience, I guess. So
Isn't it amazing how much faster and freer you can go without the burden of an expectation of that kind of a race? Like that's like with it's a different kind of expectation.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ironman training is so daunting. And there was a quote in here I really loved from Lionel's kind of advisor, David Tilbury Davis, and he said, for age group athletes, especially, it's like be realistic about your time commitments.
Mm-hmm.
And like whatever happened to being okay, just getting better, like within that window that you have. And if in the understanding and the mindfulness of the time constraints and commitments on your personal life, understanding those before you commit yourself to really a time commitment you have no idea about if it's your first one. It just creates so much stress. It is unbelievable. And I can see why so many people don't do another one, because they inserted their life into Ironman and not Ironman into their life. And there's only
That's a
so
great
long.
point.
There's only so long you can do that because it's not sustainable. I use this analogy all the time when working with new athletes. Like I'm doing a half marathon group at the gym, and a lot of them are just like brand new runners, and we're easing in, and we're running 5 or 6 days a week. And I said the beauty of finding time for this is now we're finding time when you have it, and I'm not asking for much. So if I'm asking for 10 minutes, just a 10-minute run, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then the next week I'm probably only going to ask, because I'm only going to want to go up about 10%. I may only ask for a 12 or 13-minute run. Well, if you found 10 minutes the week before, you can't tell me you can't find 2 or 3 more minutes today. And then the next week I'm going to build it to 16. And so once you kind of get in a routine of what you know you can fit in, that's when you figure out where you kind of reach the ceiling. Not, I want to average 16 hours a week. How are we going to fit it into my schedule? Like, that's not the way it works. And that's why people fail at Ironman. That's why they fail on their expectations. That's why they quit the sport. That's why you see the Ironman divorce. It's like, and there's just so many. I don't know. We could probably do a whole episode on it. It's just like better, and that's I kind of thought about that, and I think I'm still going to do it. Is get Allie on here for a podcast about, to get the wife, or the spouse of an Ironman triathlete perspective. Like, what are the sacrifices that need to be made? What do you have to have compromises on? Where do you need to be understanding? Because unless you're a guy like you, Mike, you have demanding work, but not a demanding job, where you have to answer, to a 9 to 5 clock in. You're incredibly busy, but and you don't have kids. You have Maddie, and he's kind of high maintenance, but it's like that. We could do a whole podcast on how to fit it into your life and do it right, so you can do this for a long time instead of hanging, and you forget about the journey. I think I'm going on some huge rant here, but that's why the journey is so unmemorable, because it's so time constricted.
Yeah.
And you're stressed to get things in, rather than they just work and go within the scheme of your life. And that's why it can become so forgettable.
Yeah, looking back to when I started, and you were coaching me, and it was kind of always the joke, but I was the guy that would like skip workouts and be late a lot and stuff like that. I think in the I guess subconsciously, that's what I was trying to say. I think in a lot of ways is like I felt like it was too much, and I didn't want to be a slave to the schedule of it all. And that kind of goes back to the swim I just had. It was like 1,200 meters, right? What is that? But you know what? When I got done, I knew I could have gone 2,500 easily at that pace. So now I'm trying to get myself in a place where I leave workouts feeling invigorated, more often, instead of just thrashed. Because
yeah.
I always used to say that first year, I was like, I just want to feel good on race day, like really good, like solid, not worn out or not tired or, sore or whatever. Because then I knew I was good, It's like you do enough workouts to know what you're capable of. You're never really sure, if you haven't done a full Ironman, if you can do it, because you never come close to doing that on any particular day. But you sort of know. You sort of know you can finish if you've had enough, I guess, quality workouts, and reassuring workouts is a good way to put it, because I think that when you get into this cycle of I got to do 4 hours today, and if I don't do it, I'm not going to be able to, it's like if you go for 3 hours and it's a solid bike, that's pretty good too. It's not like that extra hour. I don't know. I don't even know.
Well, I think that I think just what you said, like the more times you hear yourself saying "I've got to," instead of "I'm going to do," then I think you're headed down the wrong track.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to do a 2-hour run this weekend, or I can't. I always hate when people say that. Like, I can't. I'm training for an Ironman.
Mhm.
Like, shut up. Yes, you can. Like, you're just choosing not to make time for something else. Like, don't use that as an excuse or a humble brag. Like, congratulations, but you know, I can't. I'd rather get up and run in the morning. Like some days that's just the flat out truth. Like, I enjoy training, and I enjoy, like, right now I'm really enjoying running, thankfully.
Yeah, that's a cool.
Um,
Yeah, exactly.
and it's like I can't, every day that I go run and every day I hit the gym, I think I couldn't have made a better decision on signing up for Leadville. Um, and I just think that the more it's a mental thing. It's like saying I can't in my head. Like the more times you say you can't, it's the much more you're that much more likely to not succeed rather than saying you can. Um, I'm going to do a 2-hour run today. Not I can't. I got to go run 2 hours. Like the night before, when friends want to go see a movie, and you're like, I can't, man. I got to go 2 hours in the morning. Like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
like it's the mentality of the approach.
let's segue then because I want to talk to you a little bit about Leadville. And you said you're going to give a little update on your training. Do you have, like, as you approach this, and when is it again exactly? So,
August 19th.
August 19th. So, I always marvel at these people that do ultra marathons, and what is it, 100 miles exactly?
100 miles.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 100. Well, if I run straight, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be more, most likely.
Yeah.
But especially if I'm pacing you for 60.
Yeah, seriously, dear God, yeah.
But okay, as you approach this, like, what do you think about in terms of like how far are you going to go before you go? You know?
That's a great question, and to be honest with you, I don't have an answer for you yet. Right now, my biggest kind of objectives have been to learn as much as I can about the course, the demands for the race. I've read like review after review after review after review after review. And I was, before I started kind of research it really heavily, I underestimated which thankfully, because it fits, like, this is work for me, but is the lifting aspect of it. How important lifting weights are to ultra runners that are doing a mountainous 100.
Ah, yeah, that makes sense.
Because from everything that I've read, if you want to finish in the cutoff 30 hours, you need to be able to run between 40 to 44 miles of the course. The rest of it is hiking or walking. If you want to get the sub 24 hour, you need to be able to run between 60 and 70 and hike the other 30. So hiking is aerobic, but it's also a lot of strength. Like, we're talking squats, deadlifts, lunges. I've started to do a lot of injury prevention stuff, as far as like strengthening. It fits kind of into my whole approach to Ironman, really.
Mm-hmm.
And running is I'm all about durability and resiliency. And everything that I've kind of come across so far, and how I've kind of made my training plan or constructed my training plan has been based on that. I'm actually running less than I was a couple weeks ago. A couple weeks ago, I was still doing 6 days a week. When I got into Leadville and started doing some research on what it was going to take, I started to insert two to three lifting sessions a week, one speed work session, one still incorporating speed. Like, I think that's another part that people kind of underestimate. And I kind of knew this going in just from general knowledge about endurance sports, is that just because you're going long doesn't mean you need to neglect running fast. So the first thing I did off the bat was do a 5K run time trial to see where my threshold pace was and heart rate, and then I did another kind of baseline test, which was a very popular benchmark test for ultra runners doing hills, and it's 15 minutes at 15% incline on the treadmill. Yeah, wow, that's right.
It just whatever you can hold on to.
Whatever, yeah, and the goal is to just to see how far you can go.
Okay.
And then every 6 to 8 weeks, I will retest both the 5K to see how much faster I've gotten, and then I'll also retest the 15 and 15 to see how much more distance I can cover, because that's all about efficiency in climbing. But I'm not sure. You see a lot of people who will do a double run, like a 20 and a 10 on Saturday and Sunday, and then kind of work that up. You see a lot of people who will run 20 miles every weekend, and then like every third or fourth week run between 25 to 50. And I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to fall within that. I think and that's something else that's been so awesome about this journey so far, even though it's been so new, is that I'm learning something like every week. But like this week I did like 35 miles this week. I had my long run, and that's the other difficult part that I've kind of had to wrap my brain around, is that and I guess people probably wouldn't think this is about Kansas, but it's where I live in Kansas on the border with Missouri. It's actually quite hilly.
Okay.
And so my long runs need to be in zone 1, zone 2. So for me, that's a cap of my zone 1 caps out about 151 heart rate, and my zone 2 caps out at a very close, like 160. And so choosing to run a really, really hilly route, and now at the same time choosing to make those long runs just straight zone 1, zone 2, sometimes I feel like I'm just like slugging it. Like, not only am I keeping the heart rate down, because it's like it's so important to not go anaerobic in a race like that, because over 25 to 30 hours, once you start to produce lactic acid, you can't go back. And it's creating the greatest aerobic system I've ever had when it comes to running is what it's going to be. And so currently right now I've got my weeks set up with I'll alternate. So this last week, the work I did was the 2 quality sessions I did were all speed work. Did a tempo run on Tuesday and half-mile repeats on Thursday, with a couple easy runs and then my long run sprinkled in. And then this week, my 2 quality runs will be a tempo run on 8 to 10% incline on the treadmill. And then on Thursday, I'll do 5 3-minute max effort hill repeats at 8 to 10% grade, which is actually probably I'll probably do a little bit higher than that, because there's this hill that we have close to the house that is 12%. That's just insane. And so I'll probably hop and do that. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm running on time. I'll do a 2 hour and 15-minute run this coming weekend, and then I'll probably do a recovery week, because I'm building. It's still a good ways away, and I'm building up quite nicely so far. But I think the biggest thing is getting there injury free and fresh. But I'm not, I'm not exactly sure what my long is going to be. I'm going to listen to my body and read some more and research, and I am going to go out there in June 17th, my birthday and Father's Day weekend, and do the Leadville Marathon. So I'll get to see some of the course. I'll get my first taste of racing at altitude. And a lot of what I've learned so far is like, this is just as much about physical preparation as it is about mental and logistical preparation, as far as what you need and the fueling. I mean, the fueling aspect of doing a race like this over 25 to 30 hours is just, there's so much to think about, and the climate could change from 30 degrees in the morning and at night to 80 degrees during the day.
Yeah, that's going
to
to be
snow on top of the mountain. You always have to be ready to change. You go through water. It's like there's always something, you got to be able to change and work through, the entire time. And so I think that's the other part that I'm so intrigued about is just there's always something to learn about.
Yeah, and I look forward to learning from you what the hell I should be doing out there. No, I'll do I'll do some I'll do some research, buddy. So now, as we're talking about running, let's go into this other thing that you sent me about Mary Katani. Is that how you say her name?
The title of it is "Want to Run Fast? Listen to Your Gut."
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that was really wild, man. What she's she's just like, it sounds like she, talking about what you're just talking about as far as like all this strategy and approach, and she just sort of out running whenever she feels like it almost.
Yeah, I mean, like it's a great article. We should definitely link to it in the podcast. But,
oh, yeah, I will.
It's like, how many miles or kilometers a week are you running? And she says per week. It's just like, I'm never counted because I'm doing twice, once maybe 40 minutes in the evening, and right now in the morning, I do a 1 hour workout, so I've just never counted.
Yeah.
It's just and most people could tell you within like 2 seconds by just looking at their Training Peaks or Garmin Connect or MyFitnessPal or, and she like the obliviousness of like her knowledge of the exact distance in miles. I think it's just it's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a dark contrast to where we are, and just generally with how many tech devices we use, every year, or every day rather.
Yeah. They said, in here, many fans found this utterly perplexing. Her whole approach to this thing, it's like they were asking about her long run, and she's like, "Long run," and they're like, she said, and they're like, "What, 2 hours maybe?" And she said, "Yeah, maybe 2 hours or 2 hours and 20 minutes or whatever." And it's just this whole. It kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. It was just sort of like she obviously runs because she enjoys running and doesn't overkill herself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ultimate thing is you're listening to your body. And like there was a highlighted, quote here, an athlete is more than just a number. You're more than just a PR. You're more than just a data point or a pace or, and I did think that in Steve Magnus, that's Hayden giving a shout out to the podcast crowd.
What up, Hayden?
Yeah, we had took a solid 2 hour nap today.
Good.
Yeah, but he says, what I do is using it for a governor rather than using it to find out how fast you can go.
What's that again? Now he uses what as a governor?
Heart rate and pace.
Okay.
So, like for example, he said, during competitions, Magnus recommends using real-time data only as it is helpful. For example, during a recent marathon, he monitored his pacing and his heart rate for the first 16 miles, only to ensure that he did not go out too hard. Something. So it's in terms of being a governor, it's like, on your easy runs, sometimes I would recommend it just to make sure you're not going too fast. Because you can get caught up in the moment or caught up in music, as we discussed before. But, going for a marathon and an Ironman bike, or a marathon and anything, it's like everybody says, if you ask anybody from an endurance event, I've read it on Lead Bull stuff too, is like, what's one tip you can give to a first timer? Number one, don't go out too fast. It's like the easiest thing that like transcends all races and distances. And in that aspect, using it to kind of rein your body in, but that digitally, there's nothing that no one knows how fast you can really go at any given moment except for your body and you. That's another reason why one of my favorite runs is the Moneghetti run, is because the efforts are so short that you can go just as fast as you possibly can. You don't even look at pace because, I mean, honestly, if you're out there and you're doing the Moneghetti run or you're doing 15-second or 30-second repeats, your GPS isn't even picking up accurately how fast you're going till like closer to a minute. So whatever you're looking at is wrong. You just go by effort. And it's amazing sometimes when you just don't look at it. You look down, you're like, holy crap. It happened to me the other day. I was doing my half-mile repeats, and I was supposed to average between 6:07s and 6:34s, just in that zone for me. And I took off, and I was like, man, I feel like I'm probably bent. I looked down, I was doing like bottom sixes, and so I slowed down.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, but I only need to be like within this threshold, or not, maybe I can't hold it. But I felt so good, and then after the workout was over, and I hit all 5 repeats of my numbers, I was like, man, I should have just not looked at it till my watch beeped, and just to see what the number was.
Right.
Because I think it oftentimes holds you back in training, and then sometimes it's like the opposite. It's like, don't use it as much to get faster in training. Use it so you can PR in the race by not going out too fast. And we use it for the exact opposite.
Yeah, right. I mean, we could talk about that. I mean, the Moneghetti is my favorite run too, and I think maybe if we can, if you want to email us at crushingiron@gmail.com, we can kind of walk you through what the Moneghetti is, and it's such, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, those bursts, and you just got to kind of push your effort, and then to the whole concept of bringing it back down and getting under control. That's what I love about that so much.
And the time flies.
Yeah, and the time does fly. I always tell you, every time I do one, I'm like, it's an hour, and it's the
fastest hour you've ever ran.
Exactly, and I love it. So, yeah, I think that the thing with running is just like, I don't know, man. I really like what we're talking about today, because it comes back to listening to your body so hard, and that's sort of what I've always tried to do. And it depends on, it doesn't, whatever workout it is, and we always talk about this, it's kind of like that do the work thing I was talking about at the beginning with Pressfield, was like, just get into it and see what happens. If you're not, there's probably 2 out of 3 days you're going to probably be, dreading a workout, whatever it may be. If it's a 3-hour ride, go into it and just start riding and see what happens. Kind of going up, maybe like, maybe I won't go out and do 3 or 4 hours a day. Maybe I only do an hour, and then your body will kind of like settle in, and you'll feel great, and then you'll be like, let's go get the whole thing. But the pressure of having these monumental workouts, looming all the time is a lot. It's
a ton. I think it may be time for us to dive in on the next podcast to a little mepsology.
Yeah, man, we could get into that. It's a whole system that I follow it. Even though it's a sort of a loose outline that we have in place, I follow it all the time, and I think it's a very successful way to kind of keep the love of the sport and to keep momentum going, and and really feel good about yourself and what you're doing, because that to me is the ultimate.
and the choices you make.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the daily choices you make within training, in your personal life. But I think we're probably at a good place where we could dive into that next podcast and explain to the world what mepsology training actually is, and how it was founded, and how you can use it.
Yep, I'm in.
Maybe we'll find somebody besides you out there and I've had people go by it strictly before, but is see if anybody's willing to kind of take on the mepsology challenge and let us know how it has adjusted their training and their approach to their lifestyle, and see how it goes. But I think it's time.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. All right, let's wrap it up for today, and we'll kind of keep that out there, and that's going to be our momentum. So we got something to look forward to next time.
Yeah.
Anyway, crushingiron@gmail.com. Thank you for all the great reviews. They've been amazing. And please email us with questions, and as we go forward, we'll try to answer them, or we will answer them one way or another, either here or by email. And as you'll find, we're, real open and, ready to answer anything. So just don't hesitate, no matter what.
Yeah. Have we reached our 10,000th download yet?
No, we're close. We're getting close.
I feel like we're in the 9s.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much there. So hopefully by the end of this podcast, somebody out there, if you're listening right now, you could be the 10,000.
Yeah, I think it's very possible, and we appreciate you spreading the word.
Just pretend like they are. Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there sharing it, and we really appreciate that. And we're gonna keep going. Anything else, brother?
That's all I got, man.
Leadville on.
Yep. Update in another 2 weeks, and besides that, mepsology next time.
Yeah, and I'll do my research on orienteering.
You get
I got to carry a lantern for this thing?
headlamp.
Headlamp, okay. I probably should get a good one, huh?
Yeah,
Yes, that was in the thing. You don't want to screw around with that.
I mean, because ultimately, if I have to leave you, I'm leaving you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, man. I appreciate
All right,
it.
man. All right, talk to you soon.
All right.